Yeah. It's a really nice ink. I like. There's one calligrapher in Switzerland that's like in Basel, and he makes his own iron gall ink. So I bought that pretty early on, and it gives you.
What's up, everybody? Milan is here, and welcome to the Calligraphy Masters podcast. This is a show where I talk with some of the most inspiring and influential artists in the world of calligraphy, lettering, and sign painting with the goal of exploring their mindset and understand how they became successful. So, hi Miriam.
Hi.
I'm very hyped to have you as a guest in the Calligraphers podcast. You're actually the first female, and it's funny
Yeah.
because just today I had a comment on a video like, "Oh, those podcasts are really cool, but what's happening with the women?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Easy, easy. Here's the
There
first
we go.
one."
I'm here. Awesome.
So like yeah, it's super cool to like this is something I really love about the podcast is some of the people which I do them with like I know them like
Yeah.
quite good and I met with them, but then also a very big percentage of the people like you and others I never had to talk and see
Yeah.
you. It's usually
Yeah.
some chat on Instagram or something like this,
Yeah.
so I really enjoy this experience and it's super cool.
Yeah. It's always fun to like put a face to like a profile picture.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
Miriam, can you tell me a little bit about your background? Where are you from?
Yeah.
How old are you? And what was it like your life like growing up? Sorry.
Hmm.
And what was the point in your life that you start gaining interest for calligraphy and letters in general?
Okay. All right. I'm Miriam. I'm from Zurich, Switzerland. I'm 24 right now. I'll be turning 25 in April. Yeah, April. So almost 25. And basically, I only got into lettering like 3 years ago. Before that, I was just the writer because when I was 12, I started writing stories because my teacher was like, "You're always done early in class. We gotta do something for you. So try writing a story." And it somehow just became like my biggest passion and hobby. So I was always into words. And I was always the girl that's on her computer, either writing stories or doing something else. I was like really into GIMP back at a time, which is like
A
um, a,
software?
a software for that's pretty similar to Photoshop, but it's a little bit more complicated because it's like freeware. But I was just like I had this very early version that was running like a fake Ubuntu on my Windows PC so I could run it. So it was really early.
Okay.
Um, and I was just designing covers for like my stories that I was writing. And I had like 3,000 fonts downloaded from DAW Font. So I was always into type in a way, but never really into lettering. And so that was like my thing. I was the writer. I did a little bit of creative work, but I never really thought of myself as an artist. I was just the writer, the tech nerd, just those kind of things. And then I was like in high school or so. Then we had like this computer science class. And I had to do like Word and Excel. And because I was spending all my time in front of a computer, it was just like, all right, I know all of this. And I was done really early again. So my teacher was like, all right, so now you can either like teach yourself how to program this. Like it was like a little car with like a remote that you could program, or you can like look at into website programming. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And by that time, I had like started a blog for my writing, and I was in all those forums, and that was running on Google Blogger, which had like this whole. It was written in XML, which is like HTML with a little bit of a database.
Yeah, I'm familiar
And
with
I
it.
was like, yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna start learning how to code that thing because it was just gibberish at the time, and I learned about CSS, and that was like this moment where I was like, all right, something is happening here. Something is it has changed for me, because while I was writing, I always was saying that my biggest goal as a writer was to like mentally paint a picture in the person's mind that's reading it. So painting with words in a way. And CSS is basically you write the code, you write words, and then the browser will render that like as an image. So I was like, that's literally painting with words. So it's really cool. And I wanted to just keep doing it. And I dove really deep into that. And that became my life after that, basically. So I was just like in front of my computer, either coding code or writing stories. So I was just typing all the time. And but then came the time to decide for uni, and I was like, all right, I could do graphic design, which was something that I was into. But in Switzerland, you have to do this, it's like a 1-year course that's really expensive. And you have to do all of the art stuff to get into art school to do like graphic design. And I knew that I would never be able to do that because I was terrible at all of the arts. Like, I'm really bad at painting. I cannot sculpt for the life of me. So I was really not an artist. And I was like, all right, I cannot do that. So I'm just going to study like communication science, which is like marketing and stuff. You can get into that afterwards. And English literature, because I was just always into literature, and English was like my main subject in high school, so I was like, I'm gonna do that just for fun, and do the communication science for like a living afterwards, and maybe if I keep being a little bit creative, I could go into like graphic design a little bit later on. But then what happened afterwards was like, I started studying that, and it was like, all right, I need to like earn a little bit of money next to like studying, because just being a student wouldn't pay any bills. And I was still always like hoarding some kind of stuff. First I was really into nail polish, now I'm really into pens. I just need something to spend my money on. So I got an internship as a front-end developer, which is just the person that programs websites. Because I was getting pretty good at this front end thing, I was just doing it all the time. And then I got to work into that. And after a year at uni, I was like, all right, I'm not going to finish that because I never want to work in this field and I'm really bad at it. But I really liked my internship. So I was like, all right, I need something that will allow me to do front end development as a job, but I also need some type of like a degree in a way, because I had just finished high school and nothing else. And then I was like, I'm not going to study computer science because even though I'm not an artist, I'm still creative and I want to do something that also allows me to do some writing as well. So I went to this like professional counselor, and she was like, all right, just tell me about me. And I was literally just there telling her my entire life. Like, I've been a writer all my life. I've never been an artist. I'm creative. I like to program and all, like the entire thing that I just told you. And then she was like, all right, there's just one type of thing that I can think of for you, which is media engineering. And I had never heard about it.
Me neither.
It's a pretty new thing. It's like there's like unis and another type of like higher education. I think it's still translated uni in English, but it's like you could also do it if you have an apprenticeship. So it's like this special kind of like university that's more hands-on and practical and not theoretical. And I had to actually move from Zurich to this little town nestled in between the mountains because that was the only place they taught it. Or they also taught it in Bern, which is like the capital of Switzerland, but they wouldn't teach the major that I wanted to choose there. So I knew if I was going there, I would have to like travel after the second year to go there. So I was immediately going there. I moved there, and that was media engineering. Is basically journalism, film production, some law, a little bit of communication as well, a lot of coding, and also a bit of like design, but not really focused on design a lot. It's just like you learn how to like draw a storyboard, or you learn how to like design a website, but it was really bad. And that was when calligraphy entered my life, because we had this typography class. And it was a really bad typography class. It was absolutely terrible. We had this assignment of like designing glyphs for a font. So like we had an image, everyone had to be inspired by this image, and we had to take inspiration from that image and turn it into a font. But just part of it, like 6 letters or so. But it could not be word art, it could not be lettering or anything. And they were like, all right, everybody of you needs a parallel pen, and you can also bring other pens, but you definitely need that parallel pen. So So I bought a parallel pen, and then they were like, all right, this is some theory on typography, and now just do. So they didn't give us any guidance or anything, they just let us do. We were like sitting there for 6 hours every week just trying to figure out how to do our letters. And everybody was dreading that class because the teachers were pretty annoying. But we were all like, we all had this parallel pen and nobody knew how to use it. But it was just in everybody's mind. And then in one of the other classes, suddenly someone posted in our Facebook group where we were just chatting all the time because we were bored. It was the video of Seb Lester doing logo types. I'm pretty sure you've seen it. I think everyone has seen it.
Yeah.
And using a parallel pen. And I was like, all right, this is really cool. And I watched that like at least 50 times or so. And that was like, if you watch the video so often, your like YouTube suggestion list is just ruined. You just get lettering all the time. So it was full of lettering. And I was just looking at those parallel pen videos all the time. But I never really felt compelled to like use my parallel pen and try to do lettering. Until that one time where suddenly there was a video called Brush Lettering Basics. It was by Sheila Cunningham. And I was like, well, I have a lot of brushes at home. I'm just gonna try it. And I tried it. And that was another one of those like moments, like when I found writing or like coding, I was like, all right, words are literally a theme in my life right now. This is awesome. Like I can mentally paint pictures with words. Now I can like in real life with code, I can paint pictures, and now I can just paint words. And that was like, I was like, all right, I have to do this. And I weirdly really wanted to do it. So it was like the 30th December back then in like 2015. And by January, I had just like lettered every day without really researching a lot. I had just seen that one video and I was just writing quotes in like my cursive with a brush. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to join Instagram and do a lettering account. I'm just going to do it. And that was when I really entered into this world and mostly into modern calligraphy. So I did like brush lettering. And at one point I like found pointed pens as well. And I had seen them before, but they're really not common in Switzerland. Like the entire German region is just not really into pointed pen. We just have like broad edge nibs a lot.
Yeah.
But then I had like seen it and I ordered it internationally because I always have to order everything internationally. And I got these nibs and I did a little bit of research. Like I was going deep enough into research that I heard that like the Speedball oblique, the black one, is really bad as an oblique holder. So I was like, all right, I'm not buying that, but I'm going to buy everything else. And I had this huge collection of stuff. So, but I did a bit of research on how to use that. But I never really did a lot of research about my script. So my script was absolutely terrible. Like it looked like I had just merged a lot of different fonts into one. So it looked really terrible. But I was really proud of it. Obviously, I was really proud of it because as a beginner, you always seem to be proud of your lettering. Weirdly enough, mostly because you just aren't trained to like look at it right. But I made a lot of cool friends in the modern calligraphy community and was just really having a lot of fun with it. And then I also found Karen Newport, who back then still had her personal account. She's at iPad Lettering. And she was the first person to really letter with the iPad. And I was obsessed with her iPad lettering. Even though I'm like absolutely not into Apple, I have an Android phone and a PC by choice, so I really don't want to like get into the ecosystem of Apple. But I was like, it felt the same way that it felt with the iPod many, many years ago. I was like, all right, I think I need to get this thing. And so for my birthday in 2016, I got myself an iPad Pro, like the small one, the 9.7 inch. And it was just so much fun. I was like, since I was always into technology, it just felt like that's like my thing. And then there's Procreate, which is like the main app for lettering digitally. And they had a handbook, and it seemed like no one on Instagram seemed to have read that handbook. But I just downloaded it and was like, all right, I'm going to like master this thing in one day. Since I had my day off, I was just like swallowing everything up and learning how to make brushes as well. I was really into this brush making. And like by the end of the week, I think I had made 30 brushes or so.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm really good at this. Like the brushes really work. I was really bad at lettering, but I was definitely good at making brushes. I felt like that's something I can do.
Are you selling any of those brushes? Because
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on my website. There's almost 300 brushes.
Okay.
By now, and I think half of them are like free because whenever I use the Procreate library to make brushes, I feel like I don't want to charge for it because it's not shapes that I use. So these are free to download, and then there's a lot of them that I just made like to be like a pointed nib or having stripes or doing shadows by themselves.
Awesome. That's super awesome.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I made a lot of those.
like from what you are saying, do you mean that you're like 100% self-taught until today? Like you haven't studied anything like more like deeper, like go to a workshop or get some books or any guidance?
I have. That came like after. So I had done this iPad lettering, and through iPad lettering, I actually met Paul Antonio. So I think he posted like something about having an iPad or trying an iPad at a workshop that he was teaching like in the Philippines or so. And he had done some of that lettering with it, and because at that time I had like opened an Etsy shop, and I was like, all right, I just need to like sell everyone my brushes and tell everyone about brushes, and if they needed help with Procreate, I could help. And even though I didn't know a lot about calligraphy, I definitely knew who Paul Antonio was. So I was like, all right, that's like my moment to like tell him that I know something. And I commented about it, and I think we talked briefly about brushes. But I don't really know how much happened like between those months. That was like pretty early on in my iPad lettering journey. And that was also before I really got into point and pen myself. But then it was like August or so when I posted lettering that was absolutely terrible with an oblique holder doing flourishing. And if you know Paul, you would know what he was going to say. So I was like, I think I said something in my caption like, flourishing is hard or something like very simple. And he did a comment, and he said something about like, well, flourishing with the oblique is never a good idea, something along those lines. But the main message of his comment was like, let's make a deal. You teach me the iPad, and I teach you about calligraphy. And I was like, yeah, I'll gladly take that deal. Like, not meaning it very seriously, just like assuming that maybe he would send me a message and help me or something. But then like 15 minutes later, he invited me to actually come to London. So I was like, yeah, all right, I'm going to book a flight. So we set a date, and in November, I was going to fly there. But I didn't really do any preparations. I didn't do any research or like read books or anything. I was just like, I do modern calligraphy, I don't have to follow rules, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what was going on in my mind. But then November came, and I flew over, and I think Paul showed me how to make a ruling pen out of a cola can, and I got to use his ruling pen, which made me want to get a ruling pen really bad. And he made me do like brush drills, where he taught me how he holds his brush. And he had me like draw 2 straight lines and then like do a weight transition. So start thin, then thick, then go back to thin. And I feel like I did that for hours, and I was just struggling really bad. It was probably not hours, but it felt like it. And then like in the evening, he said, all right, now pick up a pen and let's see what you can do. And I picked up a pen, and he was like, oh God, you really don't know anything. And that was the moment when I realized he's actually right. Which is really weird because I like research everything that I do, and I teach myself a lot, but I hadn't really done that for calligraphy up until this point. But yeah, having Paul Antonio tell you that you suck is like pretty motivational.
Yes.
So yeah, I was like, all right, I think I need to change the way that I approach calligraphy. And that's what I did. So when I came home, I was just, all right, I'm going to look into copperplate and look into how to use a grid and just basically apply those rules to modern calligraphy. I think by now, my modern script looks a lot like copperplate. So
Yeah,
people have...
I was actually thinking
Yeah.
that you do it's either like a copperplate or something similar,
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Yeah.
I've only seen copperplate like online, and like if Paul or some other people we meet, then they do it, but I'm like I'm afraid of pointed nips. Like
Yeah.
I have a bunch of them. I have very beautiful,
Yeah.
like unique handcrafted like holders, but
Yeah.
I'm just admiring them and that's it. Like I'm
Yeah.
afraid of pointed pen. I don't know. Like it's very different and it's to
Yeah.
me it seems very hard because what I fell in love with calligraphy was like Gothic and fracture,
Yeah.
and this is like
Yeah.
pilot broad edge nips,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this since the beginning. And like
Yeah.
when I try sometimes something with the pointed nip, I'm like, no, no.
Yeah, that's how I feel when I try to do broad edge stuff. Because I was like, I'm gonna learn Fraktur, but it just sucks every time I try it, so I never do it. So I definitely know how you feel because I feel like I have that same feeling towards the broad edge ones.
But that's
They're
strange
just
because I
yeah.
think that's super strange. I really believe like fracture and Gothic and like anything that's with broad edge nip, it's much easier. Like because I don't know, with the pointed nip you have to have like control of the pressure and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. Sometimes you just get
Yeah.
to float your hand and it's like what it's like a whole encyclopedia to use my hand. Like
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's weird, I guess. But I never get the angle right. I can do like a 55-degree angle for copper plate right now. I'm pretty good at that. But doing anything different, like a different angle, is just weird. I'm
okay,
really bad at that. Yeah.
that's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And like other than Paul, what were the sources you were using to like properly learn?
I think I did a lot of like Googling. So I know Paul says go to the library, look at the library, but I was just, I like Google for a living. So whenever we have like a problem with programming, we Google and I'm pretty good at that. So I was like, I'm just gonna deep dive into like Flickr and stuff. So I found a lot of old manuals. Um, I think the script that I liked most was from like a Spanish calligrapher. He was like Valicierco or something. He has this book on Flickr. It's all in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. But he just had like the basic strokes, and I really liked his alphabet a lot. So I was like, I'm gonna focus mostly on that whenever I try to do like copperplate. I also got like Eleanor Winter's book. But to be honest, I just don't really like her script. I think her script looks a little bit dated. And so I read her book, and I think her book has great information on it, but it just didn't feel like a reference that, because I didn't want my script to look like that. I know that sounds like really bad.
No,
Really
but
sorry,
why? Like
Eleanor.
like we're people. Like everybody likes
Yeah,
different things. Like you can like something
yeah,
and the other person can hate it. Like we're just
yeah.
like, it's I don't think it's a bad thing that you're saying it. Like
Yeah, but I think a lot of people still consider that to be like the best resource to learn copperplate in like the English style.
no,
Um,
I think the
but yeah,
best source to learn copper plate is the copper plate manual of Paul Antonio,
yeah,
the yin and yang
yeah, it
approach.
definitely is. It definitely is. I like the fact that it's mostly like a textbook, so it feels a lot very technical, and it looks a lot like my geometry textbooks, and it's really nerdy, and I love it. But I've heard people don't like it because oftentimes people feel way too artsy for it, and they feel like that's science, and I don't want to do science. I've heard some of that, and I don't get it because science is so much easier.
Yeah, you know what I think is the problem? I think the problem, like those people who think this way, are people who haven't been so long into calligraphy and
Yeah,
haven't learned yet the what's like important in calligraphy and what's beautiful and
yeah,
like all these things about the rules. Because I remember myself in like the first 1 2 years doing
yeah,
calligraphy masters, I liked like traditional calligraphy and stuff that Paul does and other people do. But I was like, okay, that's beautiful, but that's it. Like, what's this? Like, why?
yeah,
Like, it's it's
yeah,
it's 21st century. Like, what made me fall in love with calligraphy was the Pilot Parallel Pen review by Tius One. And
yeah,
what I loved about it, it was like this super awesome Gothic style with his
yeah,
own touch, and I was like, that's it, man. Like, what is this? This,
yeah,
this thing is boring. Like,
yeah,
but then with the time when you're like longer and go deeper into calligraphy, it becomes your life. You start
yeah,
to have different values and to appreciate it and understand why you
definitely.
need it.
Yeah, that's the same for me with Spencerian. When I first saw Spencerian, I was like, what the hell is this ugly script? And now I really do not know why I couldn't really appreciate the beauty of it, but I just didn't like it, and I didn't see why people were spending time writing it. Which is so weird now because I think it's one of the prettiest script and I definitely want to learn it, but I didn't like it at first. And also, I always preferred like the modern calligraphy that was like bouncy and all over the place to like traditional copperplate, and now I'm completely different. So it's weird how, as I said, once you like really train your eye to it, you can see all the beauty in it.
Yeah.
That seems boring first.
Do you remember what were your biggest struggles when you were like learning, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think the very biggest struggle was getting materials because it takes like a lot of money to like buy stuff because in Switzerland you have to just like get everything from overseas because there wasn't anything available. I know a lot of people struggle with like the language barrier here in Switzerland as well. Like a lot of people that I've been like pretty much in pretty involved in like the local community here, and a lot of people say, well, I don't know English well enough to teach myself, and I think that is a problem for quite a few people. I never really had that problem with like my English, but when I was trying to do like to learn with that Spanish manual, I realized how it feels. So I think that can be a struggle. I always had like ink blobbing on me, and that was before I really researched what different inks do. But then I found out that I just need to get good walnut ink and good paper, and I need to like, that was one thing that Paul taught me that I never realized. If you dip your ink, your pen in your ink, and then you directly start writing, you will not get good lines. And then you just give it a little shake like that, and it takes one of those drops off, and then you're good to write. And that blew my mind when Paul was like, oh, you shake that off. I never really thought about that. Yeah, getting smooth paper, then you can really write. And I had a lot of bad ink that was bleeding all over the place, and I would just not be able to use a grid well. And that was because I think I saw everybody use the Rhodia papers with a dot grid. And I was trying to write on that dot grid. But it's really hard to like see the lines when you're trying to write straight. So at one point I was just like, all right, I'm gonna make my grids. So I pulled up Illustrator and made some grids that were a lot, had a lot smaller space between the slant lines than downloads I had found on the internet. So I think the grid that I make looks pretty similar to the one that Paul has. So it's very, very narrow. And that helped me a lot. I think that Spanish manual also had a pretty narrow grid. So it was a lot easier to like do the spacing right with the letters. And like the width of the letters is just always something that I struggled with. But I feel like mostly just studying the script really helped me. Like not even just writing it, so just looking at it and trying to figure out the differences. Like you mentioned Paul's manual, there was he has this one section where he compares the straight to the oblique holder. And when I first looked at it, I was like, I don't see the difference. And now if I look at it, I can really clearly see all of the differences that he pointed out. And I feel like knowing that's how close I need to look, that was something that was really like a moment where I was like, all right, I need to look a lot closer at my script than I did before. That's why I really don't like my script at the moment, because I'm looking really closely at it, and I see all the flaws in it. But
But that's
yeah,
good.
that was something. Yeah, that's good. That's definitely how you improve. Yeah.
And how much time were you putting into practice back then, and how much practice do you do nowadays, and how important is practice to you?
All right, so I did a lot more practice back then than I do now because I was like starting calligraphy when I was studying, and I started working full time this year. So back then I was just like off a lot of the time, and I would do like at least 1 to 2 hours every day. But I think I practiced pretty wrongly, to be honest. I did a lot of like playtime, so I was just writing random words. I didn't never really fill pages of just one stroke. I still honestly don't really do that because I'm too lazy and too impatient to just fill one page with O's. I always admire people who can do that. I never could do that. That's also why I always say I could never be like a traditional calligrapher, because addressing 500 envelopes on the same paper with the same nib, with the same ink, I could never do that. It's also when I practice, I have like, I think 10 different pen holders by now.
Okay.
And I use all of them during one practice session. So I'll just like do like 50 minutes with that holder, and then I will change to the other holder because I get bored of it so fast.
What's your
and I
top?
guess that-
What's your top three favorite holders to use?
I have 3 by Yoke Pen Company actually that I really like. He really makes great holders. I have 2 by Kalemkes. I think you know him. He made a really cool seal for you.
I have two of
I
him
really
as well.
love those.
Yeah, one
I
is with
really
the
love
set,
those.
yes, with the stamp. It's like
Yeah.
mind blowing.
That's really pretty. I think I found him through like a friend who got a holder, and I was like, stop everything, I need to know who made that. And I like immediately ordered mine. I also really like the run from Miles Calligraphy.
Okay.
He's from Turkey as well. I just really like the thinner pens. I know Ink Me This makes really thick pens that are really popular in the modern calligraphy community. And I think they're great if you have a really tight grip, because they just don't allow you to grip as much. But I have one of hers. It has like coffee in it and clear resin. It's really cool. But I honestly gravitate towards the thinner pens. I just like thinner pens more. And since Yoke Pen Company makes like custom ones to like your size exactly, they're just the most comfortable to use.
I see.
And I have another one coming from him, so I really like his work.
Then can you tell me your 3 favorite nibs to use and to
I
write
can.
with?
I think my number 1 favorite nib is the Gillot 303, which is a really bitchy nib most of the time, so it likes to really stick to paper and hang, but it just makes the thinnest hairlines ever, and I really love hairlines, so it's just my favorite. Then I love the Hunt 22, which is the one Paul uses for his manual, and it's also the one that I would recommend to everyone beginning, because I know a lot of people recommend the G-nibs, but G-nibs are really, really rigid, and you have to press a lot to get a shade, and that really means I feel like if you write with the Gillot, if you want to write with the Gillot 303, you cannot practice with the G-nib, because you need like so little pressure for like a really soft nib. And if you learn with the G-nib, you just won't get there, I think. So I feel like the Hunt 22 is a really good in-between that will teach you pressure control better than like a G-nib. But G-nibs are great for like writing on textured paper, and I always say if you have a bad day as a beginner, you can take that nib and it will give you okay results. So I always feel like if you start, you get 3 nibs, get the Hunt 22 to really teach you how to write, get the G-nib for when you're frustrated, and get a Hunt 101 if you want to challenge yourself. Because the Hunt 101 is really soft, but it is not as like difficult to use than the 303. It's a little bit more forgiving because it's a little bit thicker.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Is like as a person who is like not doing pointed pen work, I wanted to know: is it easier to start with how did you say it? Like it's a softer nib?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Um,
does softer is the same as flexible or not really?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to like distinguish those two, because I feel like flexibility, or like not flexibility, like softness and springiness is something else. So there's like nibs that are really, really soft, like the Rose nib by Brause, which is really soft and it is not springy at all. So it doesn't spring back as fast. So it's a lot harder to do transitions well. But then there's really springy nibs, like the 303 or the Leonard Principle, which is also really springy. So it just springs back a lot faster after you like push on it. The nibs come back faster together. And as a beginner, I would say definitely look that you get a very springy nib. Like the G-nibs are also really springy, because usually when you begin, you write a lot too fast. Like writing too fast, no problem. So a lot of people write really fast, and if you have a really soft nib that is not springy at all, you will get terrible transitions. So never use a rose nib as a beginner. Generally, don't never use that nib. I really hate it. But softness, I'd say don't go too soft at the beginning. Go something in the middle, like 122, or like the blue pumpkin nib. That's also one a lot of people like. It's also like an in-between thing. But what I think is a little bit difficult with the blue pumpkin or the Leonard 41, they're like the same kind of look, but they're different brands. These are made for like stenography, which is writing really quickly.
Okay.
And I feel like because they were made for like writing really quickly, they can flex a lot more than you should. So I always have problems with using those nibs because I want to apply more pressure because I feel like it can spread more, but they actually cannot spread that much. So you could put more pressure on it, but you shouldn't because it can really lead to like those blobs.
How often do you break pointed nibs? Because like I use only broad edge nibs. I have pointed,
Yeah.
but never used them, and I honestly think I never broken any of my broad edge nibs. But I've heard from people that like a pointed nib after a time either you can't use it or at some point it breaks.
Yeah, I've once had a nib explode on me. So the tine just like came off. It was a vintage nib. It was a really nice nib. But I was like trying for my blog to do my entire nib collection, which by that time it was like a manageable job. By now I have like over 100 or 150 or so. So I have a lot. And I
For
don't
real?
want to do it again. Yeah.
Oh, but no, like now that I hear this, I think this should be a super awesome and interesting video.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it
damn,
would
that's
be.
like 100. No, like I got hooked
It's
seriously.
definitely over 100 by now, I think. I've broken some. But I've done like this blog post where I have like I think 50 or so reviewed, like the most modern nibs, and I did like this chart where I would just like push as fast as much as I can, like how much is the entire range of that nib, and during that one of them exploded and one time broke off, and it was just vanished after that. I like found it when I was moving out of the apartment. I literally stepped on it, so it was just lost for an entire year under like a book shelf. But it was just broken off entirely. It's just like this little triangle thing that's really sharp. I broke that because it applied too much pressure. Now what can happen is that you can misalign the tines a lot faster. That's a lot of people who like don't really hold their nibs right. They will try to like hold their nib straight but right slanted. So then you will apply more pressure onto one of those tines, and one of them will get used more. So it will be like crooked at the end,
Yeah.
or it will just like sometimes they also like go on top of each other as well. So then you cannot no longer write. Also, if you use iron gall ink, which is like a very acidic ink, it will just become more brittle and break more easily. So I've had one nib that I used with iron gall ink for like a month or so. It was just like, it was literally like falling apart in the end.
I actually think I never used like iron going, like never. Like mostly I've worked with like watercolors. Then
Yeah.
also from time to time Indian black or like some Chinese
Yeah.
black, and that's it. Like I also have some gouache from Royal
Yeah.
Talents, but
Yeah, gouache is awesome.
but I never tried like this iron gall.
Traditional one.
I
Yeah,
I remember even when we had the website still running at Calligraphy Masters, I once uploaded a tutorial how to make yourself like iron gall ink, but I never did it and never tried it. So
Yeah, it's a really nice ink. I like. There's one calligrapher in Switzerland that's like in Basel, and he makes his own iron gall ink. So I bought that pretty early on, and it gives you beautiful hairlines. But if it is a traditional recipe, so there's fountain pen inks that are also iron gall, but they're not as much acidity to it. I think there's one from Rova und Klingler, from this German brand. They have one that's also an iron gall ink, but it's not like a traditional iron gall. But also Yoke Pen Company makes iron gall inks based on like, I think he has one from a Japanese recipe, one from Arnold. I think it was called Arnold's Writing Fluid, and one from Madrat. I do not know how to pronounce that name. He makes this small batch historic inks, and I think I got like 3 from him and 1 from that guy in Basel. And I really like that one. And they are really, really aggressive, but they make beautiful lines. They're really matte black, and they are waterproof as well. But after I got like that first one from Basel, I like used it and I just saw my nibs falling apart and like needing replacement. And back then I just bought like single nibs. So I was like, I'm not gonna spend $20 on shipping if I break it so fast. So I just stopped using it. But after like later on, like 2 years later, I decided to like get them back because they are just, the hairlines are just so pretty. But yeah, they break nibs easily, and they're really thin as well. I think a lot of people do not like them because they're so thin. They're like water, but I personally really like thin inks. So
How long did it took you to make this collection of around or over 100 nibs? And have you written with each one of them, or some of them are just for the purpose of collection?
I've written with all of them. I've even written with like the Leonard. How is it called? Like the
Leonard?
Principality.
Yeah.
And like I think I have like Vitolo calls these like the Dream Point nibs. There's like 5 or so. I think I have 4. I think I have 4 of those. I don't have all of them, but I don't use those for writing, to be honest. So
Why not?
I have one of each.
Why don't you use them?
Because I want to frame them at one point. I really like to have like a little frame with just the Dream Points nib once I got all of them and want to hang them above my pen collection somewhere. So I got all of those as a gift. So I've had different people send them to me, so I didn't buy them myself.
Can you wait just a second, please? Because while we
Yeah.
were talking, I came up with a cool idea project to talk with you later or
Okay.
soon. But oh, this is gonna be nice. Just to write it, because I'm gonna forget otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, so and then I just like I think I started collecting those very early on, like before I met Paul. So in my first year of like writing, I already like started hoarding. I mean, like I have like this entire PVC thing that's full of brush pens. So I'm really a pen hoarder. And the nibs don't take as much space, but I really have a lot of pens. And I bought, like, because I had to pay $20 shipping, I was like, I'm gonna not pay $20 shipping for one nib. So I'm gonna buy all of them. But I didn't really buy boxes of nibs, so I just bought like singles or 2 of them. And that guy from Basel sells vintage nibs and singles, so I got a lot of them from him. Then there's also this website kalipos.de, which is a German site. It also has a lot of different vintage nibs. I got some sent from like calligraphy friends, and I think I have found a few on a flea market. Like I had this one time I was really lucky at a flea market and found the Paris 28, which I never realized was really popular, but apparently it's really popular and it sells for like $5 to $10 a piece. And I had like this little box full of them for like 5 Swiss francs. So I was really excited about that because I never get lucky with buying nibs. I always spend a lot of money on it. But that was a cool one. Otherwise, we just have like a lot of monoline and broad edge nibs in Switzerland because that was what was used. So there is not a lot of pointer pen history here, and you can really tell that.
But do you have any like different broad edge nibs? Because like the ones I know are Browse, then Speedbow, and I'm not sure if Mitchell has. I think they have, but I think for broad edge nibs, I don't know many brands.
Sönneken, do you know? There's also Sönneken. They do. There's a lot of like monoline nibs that they have done, but they also have a few broad edge. I think I have a few broad edge.
Yeah, but my point
don't
is,
have this
my
one.
point is, do you have any special brands of broad edge nibs in Switzerland that are not
I
so
think
common?
there's a few. There's a few Swiss brands. There were like mostly in the French-speaking region. That were invented for like Ronde, which is that I think David you writes it.
Like
Quite a
round
few
or rotunda? Because there is a script called rotunda, and or
Oh, it's the French one. The French one. I'm not exactly. Oh, that might be. It might be Rotunda. I'm not sure, honestly. I'm not that well versed with those scripts. But there's those, but I don't remember how they were called. I think I have like one of those boxes somewhere that is a Swiss brand, but I'm not sure if they have broadage nibs as well. But I'm gonna look the next time I'm at a flea market and tell you.
yeah, I had some questions, but they jumped. That's the bad thing when I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
And yeah, I told you, but like people don't know, guys. I'm sorry, but today I'm extra exhausted and tired, and my energy might be a bit down. But sorry for this. It's all sacrifice for this wonderful podcast. What do you think actually about the podcast? You said you have listened to some of the podcasts.
Yeah, I really like it. I really enjoy it. I really like to like hear people's stories, and I really like that there are pretty like long episodes, because I feel like oftentimes when you hear like calligraphers talk about their story, it's always really brief and short, and it's just like it never goes really deep because it's mostly just done for like regular media and not for calligraphy people. And I really enjoy it. I really like hearing like stories because you never really get to hear them otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I do them because I don't know, I, I myself am this way, and I believe that when you see like the journey of somebody else, like what and how he done it, like you can get stuff that you like, and you can learn some things that can be useful for different people, you know. So I think pretty much this is the biggest reason the podcast to be around, like the journey
Yeah.
of each artist and how he went through it and what's going on with
Yeah.
it.
And it's also so different for everyone, like, and also I really love how the differences are between like the different types of calligraphy, like the sign painter stories and the hand lettering people. It's just different for everyone, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, but I just wanted to know because like so far like it first of all it's totally new thing to me, like so far like today I've launched episode 5, and in the first 2 3 episodes it was super weird because I don't know, it's something totally new for me.
Yeah.
But then I saw like all the guests being super happy about it, very good feedback,
Yeah.
and then also the people who are listening, and this motivated me even more to do like more podcasts, more people, more stories.
Yeah.
And I have actually have some secret guests which I haven't announced, but I'm so hyped
Also the
about
secret
them.
ones.
Well, they're like, to me, they're like super masters, and
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, that's cool.
I don't believe that they even said yes for a podcast. So I
Yeah.
was that's super awesome,
Blown
and
away. Yeah.
I wanna scream and tell everybody like about it, but then
Yeah.
I prefer like to be a total surprise, you know, when I launch it and
Yeah.
nobody has expected it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I ask, cause I'm wondering how it's in the people,
Yeah.
cause I'm only here talking and it's like I do
Yeah.
it every day, and at some point I become like a robot. I listen to the story
Yeah.
and think, but I don't know how the other people get the episodes, cause even
Yeah.
when we talk, that's what I hear. But then when I edit,
Yeah.
I don't listen the whole episode when I'm editing.
Yeah.
I'm just setting up some things,
Yeah.
trying to match, and I don't listen to the episodes. So
Yeah.
maybe I should
can
maybe I
imagine.
should try to listen to one of them. But then there is the thing, I don't really like hearing myself talk in English.
Yeah. I know how you
Especially
feel.
when I edit
Yeah.
I think it's getting better, but like the first 2 3 episodes I'm editing, and then I'm clicking at the part where I'm speaking, and I hear
Yeah.
some shit, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you doing this?
Yeah. But it gets better with some time. Like at the beginning, I was doing all of these Instagram stories. Whenever I would get new stuff, I would do like hauls in my Instagram stories. And it was like, I don't want to listen to myself. But it's getting better with time.
No, but that's the thing. I think it's good if you don't like something, like for example me hearing myself talking this way, because usually like you talk every day and with different people, but
Yeah.
to hear yourself, you don't realize it, you know. And
Yeah.
once you realize it, okay, you're like very like you feel cringy and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But then at the same point, you're like, okay, I should be careful about this, and I should do this way and this way.
Yeah, you can critique yourself.
Yeah, and you can learn from it and improve.
Yeah,
But
true.
I don't think today is one of those days that I'm gonna learn anything from it. I'm seriously, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk a bit. Oh yeah, sorry. Like yeah, my mind is going a bit weird. But you said earlier you started with writing stories like before calligraphy, and I
Hmm.
was wondering when you started calligraphy, did you make like any of the stories, or did you write any stories in calligraphy?
I do write quotes sometimes. Like I have sometimes sometimes I'm writing stories and I feel like, oh right, I really like that sentence. But I obviously writing German because it's like my mother tongue. So sometimes I feel like I really like that sentence and I might try to translate it to like English and see if it works without context, and then I would put it on my feed. But most of the time I'm like really critical of my writing, like really critical. Like back when I was like 15, I was in this internet forum. I would post my stories online, and it's like the same thing with calligraphy. The longer you do it, the more critical you get. Even though you get better, you just don't like it as much. And now I'm really just like I really should put more of my writing out there, but I don't really do. But yeah, sometimes I will do like I will post some of the quotes that I write, but not much. Sometimes I do like whenever I like print it out, because there's like one or two people that like get to read my stories at the time. So whenever I like print it out or like just send it over, I will do like a cover design where I do a little bit of lettering on it. But other than that, I keep those pretty separate. Yeah.
So you're
Well, I
like
do write my captions on Instagram, so somehow some of the writing has translated into like the calligraphy, but not a lot.
I see. So you said you're like 3 years into calligraphy, which actually
Yeah.
surprised me because I thought for some reason that you're doing calligraphy much longer. I guess you've improved like in a good
Thank you.
way. But my point is like you're like still considered quite a beginner in calligraphy, like in the field of
Yeah.
calligraphy. And
Hmm.
I wanna know, do you have any styles that you're willing to learn and that you have like as a goal? Because right now you're like doing something like copper plate, more like a
Hmm.
modern thing. But
Yeah.
do you have an idea, or are you willing to learn any other styles? Maybe even some styles with broad edge nib, or just some other specific scripts?
Yeah. I really want to learn Spencerian. I even got like an oblique holder just to learn Spencerian. I have like started learning Spencerian. I got some resources, but at the moment I'm just really busy working, so I don't really have a lot of time, and it's very different to like the style that I do. So it's a lot of like mind work. But I definitely want to learn Spencerian. I'm also
I actually have a episode with Mike Ward,
Oh yeah, he's awesome. I love his work.
and also Theo Swan has told me some things about him, like
Hmm.
and about his practice. And I
Yeah.
think the episode with him will be very interesting to me
Hmm.
myself, and I guess to many people as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very great with Spencerian, and I guess he will share some useful stuff for people
Yeah.
who are willing
Yeah.
to learn it. But so far, I think like the best thing is maybe the Zenarian manual. Maybe there is
Hmm.
some info about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I have one of those really old school instruction books. I also have the traditional Spencerian books, like the one where that were like for children in school back when it was still like the cursive that they taught. It's like the
Okay.
really old school Spencerian. It doesn't have like any flourishing at all. It's really basic. It's like five little booklets. And I started to fill those out, but I never really did a lot with it. Another script that I am learning though is Italian Hand, which is mostly just taught by Heather Held. And she's awesome. She does also like beautiful, intricate illustrations with like flowers and gilding. And there's not a lot of resources about it, so there's basically nothing about Italian Hand. But I just really love that script, and I've been writing it. Other than Spencerian, I feel like I can somehow kind of write a modern version of it. But yeah, I've actually written Heather Held some emails and asked her if she could just like give me feedback on it, which she gladly did, which was really nice. And she was like, "Yeah, you should do that and that." But I think she has the opinion that it's really just trying to incorporate it in your style. So that feels a lot like more loose and easier to get into than Spencerian, which is very strict, like this is how you do it, you have to move your entire arm and everything like that. So I feel like Italian hand is a little bit easier to get into, and there's not a lot of people doing it. So I just really like it. Also, I'm like half Italian, so I feel like maybe some of my heritage could be incorporated, because there's like no like Swiss script or anything that I could learn. I tried to learn Courant, which is the German script that was around. This is also the reason why there's no pointed pen in Switzerland and Germany. You probably never heard of it.
No,
I've never heard of it.
I'm just wondering. I was like, what? Like I
Yeah,
was trying to.
it's like, have you seen the double S the Germans use? It looks like a B
yeah.
or a beta. That is actually one of the remaining letters from the Courant script. It was like a different alphabet than the Latin alphabet that was written in the German-speaking world, like in Germany, in Switzerland, in Austria, some parts of Denmark as well, and the Netherlands. And that developed like completely separately from the rest of the European countries. So they started like way earlier at developing that script. And then at the time when like the pointed pen was invented, they started using the pointed pen for it. But then they moved away from the pointed pen back to like the broad edge to write that script, which is why there's no pointed pens left here, because they just ditched them because they were too hard to use. And then when World War II happened, they were actually forbidden, so they stopped teaching Courant. They just taught the Latin script, so there's not many people able to read it or write it. And I found this one website that has like a huge manual on learning Courant, and also a version of writing it with a pointed pen with like different weights.
But can you see the whole alphabet there?
Mm-hmm.
And
There's the entire letters.
where can I and people find it?
I think it was called like Courant Lernen, which is learning Courant for German.
Okay.
I think they also have like an English website. If I can find it, I'll send you.
Yeah, I
a
think
little
like
also
after
of history.
after the podcast, if you send me the link,
Yeah.
it will be great. I will put the link in the YouTube video. Like people not listening or watching this on YouTube, but
Yeah.
the link will be on YouTube. So
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be cool if you
Yeah.
can send it. Because
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
I'm
try to
I'm
find it.
also really interested to see it. Because like
It looks really weird. It's really hard to read, but I really want to learn it because I think it's really cool. And everybody also always talks about like Fraktur because that's like the script that we still know about the German area, but not about Courant because it was just like forbidden because I think Hitler said it's like the letters of the Jews. So he was like, we forbid that. And I think it really sucks that Fraktur was like not lost after that, but after World War II, no one speaks about Courant anymore. It's really sad, I think, because it's such a cool script.
you really made me now curious. Because like
Yeah.
I love Fracture. It's like the thing
Yeah.
that I'm doing probably most of the time. And now that you're talking about this way, I'm really curious to see it. Like
Yeah.
you're really interested to see it.
Yeah, if you look at Paul's manual, there's like different scripts at the beginning from different countries, and there's one labeled Sütterlim with
Okay.
S, and that's actually from that alphabet because Sütterlim was the one that like took the script and developed a version for it for like school to be taught in schools.
Okay, I'll check it.
That's the official
I have the manual. Like I went through the pages, but I haven't been deeper in it like yet. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Me
know.
neither. Which is why I feel like my script, I still call it modern script because I really want to learn copperplate properly. And I'm really just waiting for like Paul's Facebook class where he's like going to be doing all those lessons and you're to practice because I really want to learn like properly and like really strictly and just follow it accurately. So I've read the manual like a couple of times, but I never really did good practice with it.
You read the whole manual?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
Damn.
I always read and whenever I like get a book, I just read it. through,
No,
like,
that's
the
funny
videos.
because I usually read quite a lot of books, but I read books and not calligraphy books, you know.
Yeah.
Usually the calligraphy books I have, for example, the Calligrapher's Bible, I
Yeah.
open this book only on the pages like where are the alphabets to see the...
Yeah.
And that's it. I haven't read anything from the actual text that's explaining stuff and things.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. Like I'm like,
Yeah, I like doing my research now.
yeah,
Like,
but
I feel like I have to make up for that first year where I didn't do any research. Now I just do all of the research.
but I feel like very bad because like I'm like the founder and the editor of Calligraphy Masters, and I'm supposed to have to be like more like how it says professional and to research stuff and
But they're just humans. I don't think all of the people have read all of those books, and that's one of the few books that I just read like cover to cover. I also read the one from Eleanor Winters, and like the modern calligraphy books that some of my friends have written. I read all of those like completely, but other than that, I don't really read all of those books that I have. I don't have as many either.
what's your top three favorite calligraphy or lettering books?
My favorite lettering books, definitely the Copperplate Manual by Paul Antonio. Um, and then let me just look. I do have like my books over there, which is why I'm looking. I really like the Universal Penman for reference. I bought that book like pretty late, but I really like it for referencing like flourishing especially. And then I think I don't have that many books actually.
Okay,
I think probably those Spencerian books.
in
I
in
really like
in
those.
this case, like, what do you think makes a calligraphy or lettering book a good one?
A good one. I think if it gives you new information, like
Okay.
information that is not available on the internet for free. Because I feel like there's so much information on the internet where there's video accompanying it. So it's definitely like offering you more value than like just a typical book because it like actually shows you how to write a letter than just telling you how to do it. And what I really like about Paul's book is that he gives you like a completely different approach to lettering than like what other people taught before him. I really like when there's like examples of how you not don't do it, like bad examples, because oftentimes they're like try to make it look like that and then giving you like examples of if your letter looks like that, then it's wrong. You need to correct that way. So I feel like if it offers that to you, that's a really good book. I personally also really like it when they're well written. I really enjoy good writing. So whenever I feel like there's so many books out there that are terribly written and it somehow annoys me because I'm a writer, so
Okay,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
you're a writer, and like I
yeah.
struggle with this. Like when the website was still available. I mean, it will be soon again. But my point is like I never been studied
Yeah.
journalism or anything like this, and actually everything that I'm doing with calligraphy masters, no matter what it is, I'm
Yeah.
self-taught. Like I learn it on
Yeah.
the go, and
Yeah.
I was struggling very long time for the blog posts because
Yeah.
I know I don't know how to make them good and
Yeah.
what to do, but I was just writing whatever I
But
felt
if
and
you're offering good information, it doesn't matter so much. I feel like the most problem is that most of the books that are out there that I don't really think are really good don't offer new information or aren't really curated well. So they just like have some kind of information that's also in a blog post. And if it was written well, I would be alright and I would still read it.
okay, but
But if it was
you're a writer. Give me some tips like if I write a blog post or just some small story, like what to do to write it like as you consider it a good text or story or whatever.
I think if it feels like a conversation is nice. Like if you incorporate the person reading it, that's just like my personal opinion. I feel like some people really don't like my way of writing blog posts, but I really like writing to a person and talking to them and incorporating the person that's reading and like trying to think what would the reader think after they read what I said and what would their reaction be and just trying to like pick that up and incorporate it and answer it. So I feel like if it answers all of the questions that might pop up, like right from the get go, that's good. Also, if it's just like, if it has like a circle, so if you begin with something that's like a little story, and if you end with that story, it just makes it more round looking. So writing like a quick introduction and doing like a last words. I don't follow that rule myself all the time, but in theory, that's how it would be done, I think.
And what were the stories you were writing and maybe still writing? I don't know, but what were most of the times they about? What stories have you been writing?
Oh, I think I've tried all of it. I've gone through all kinds of genres. So I've always wrote fiction. I never wrote no nonfiction. So I wrote like I think one of my first big stories that I like finished was about a girl doing a having a drug addiction. That was like I really liked reading those books when I was a teenager. I really liked how seeing how what drove people to like do something like that and how they overcame it. So I wanted to write something like that. I wrote a lot of fantasy when I was reading fantasy, so I wrote about elves and all of that and war. And then I started doing more real life things, just writing about everyday life, like what people doing when they're at uni and stuff. So mostly that. I wrote a lot about writers, weirdly, even though I never feel like I wrote stories about myself or people that were like myself. Oftentimes there were writers involved because I don't know. I just really like it because then I could really explore the subject of writing. Like, I think I always wrote about like people in the teen years, and there's this one writer who's called John Green. I think maybe you know him. He is also on YouTube. And I remember that I really liked his books. They were like really kitschy. But he was always criticized for having like teenagers that spoke too well. And I think that was one of the things that you could probably say about like stories that I wrote. They were just like too conscious of what they were saying in a way, and that's why I like having writers because they have the right to use like more big words and stuff. So that's why I probably made all of them writers. Not that I'm saying I'm like knowing a lot of big words, but I kind of really like to explore with language, and I feel like I can express myself a lot better on paper than I can on like words,
And
because I can think about it more.
how many pages are usually those stories?
Between 200 and 800, there's a lot of pages,
Wow.
and there's a lot of stories. It's over 10 years of writing, so
So you
I've
you
wrote a
you
lot.
you have one or more stories that are 800 pages?
I think I have one with 800 pages, and the others are just like around 200 to 400.
That's
Mostly are like
insane.
300.
How
Yeah.
long time it took you to write this?
Well, it depends. I always, in November, it's National Novel Writing Month. You might have heard about it. NaNoWriMo. That's when writers try to write 50,000 words or more in 30 days. Um, I've always made it, so I participated like 6 years. And the first year that I didn't like win and wrote more than 50,000 words was when I met Paul, because I was always constantly doing calligraphy and didn't have time enough to write. But I was always like writing those stories, so I wrote a lot. There's like times where I just do like where I write really like I think the most I've written in the shortest amount of time was like 70,000 words in 15 days or so during
What?
holidays. It's crazy. It was full of grammatical errors and it was not good, but it was a story in the end. Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy.
That's I don't know, it's awesome and it's crazy and it's mind blowing, like super awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always the weird writer girl. Then I was the nerd and now I'm the weird calligrapher, so in a way it's just like I have to be weird in a way.
Which one do you enjoy more, writing stories or writing calligraphy?
I think it's both by now, which is crazy for me to say because writing has been like my thing for over 10 years, but I really, really enjoy calligraphy and I've only been doing it for 3 years. So it really has become like part of my life. Yeah, which I never would have thought about would happen, but it really is part of my life. I also have like a side business doing calligraphy now, which is insane. And if you would have told me that like 3 years ago, I would have called you crazy.
I totally understand this because I think I've mentioned also in one of the other episodes that I've recorded, maybe they are still not released, but when I found like calligraphy, like this was like, yeah, that's what I've been searching always, and like, yeah, it clicked everything, but then I never thought that I'm gonna find something else that's gonna make me feel this way. And I found video, like
Yeah,
video filming, video editing. I fell so much in love with it,
yeah,
and I I couldn't have imagined that I'll find, not that I'm just gonna find another thing, but at the same time, it won't stop me from the first one, you know?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
actually found a way to use them both, and
And
this is,
combine them all.
yeah, like life is very funny.
Yeah, it's really especially funny that in this time in the 21st century we can actually like earn money doing calligraphy, which is insane because it feels like calligraphy is dead in so many ways, but it really isn't.
Well, it was some years ago. Now I
Yeah.
think, like, even, oh, that's so beautiful. Like, yesterday or the day before, I was recording an episode with Jake Wadman, and he,
Yeah.
he said something that it clicked with me so much. I was so happy. Like, I got goosebumps from it. Like,
Yeah.
he said, no, like, should I say it? Yeah, like, it
Say
should,
it.
like, okay, yeah, because the episodes will be already released when, yeah, it's okay to say it. Like, he said, we are actually living in the renaissance of calligraphy. And like, this is the perfect description for me, because it
Yeah.
really is, like, and I think it's never before calligraphy it's been on so high level and so many people to
Yeah.
be interested in it and at the same time doing it. And also you can see, like, last 1, 2, maybe 3 years, more and more brands are starting to incorporate it in their
Yeah.
advertising and everything. So I think it's super awesome.
Definitely. It's a great time to be in.
Exactly. And so, like, earlier you said, like, you're working full time. I was gonna ask if you're working calligraphy, but then now a few moments ago you said now you have a calligraphy business. So can you explain those kind of things?
Yeah, so my full-time job is front-end developer, so coding websites. I do that 100%, so 8 hours a day, a little bit more this time of year because I work in like we create annual reports, financial annual reports as a website, and now it's like literally season, so I work like 10 hours a day at the moment, but it will be like more calm and back then when it will be a little bit more calm, I want to focus a little bit more on my calligraphy thing. But I have like the online shop where I sell the digital brushes that I do. I also have like practice sheets where I have like my kind of style because everybody was like asking me to do practice sheets. I made practice sheets. And I do also have the Yoke Pen Company Deuce in my shop because there was no one selling it in Europe. And I was like, I don't want people to use the Speedball Oblique, so I'm going to have to offer that. So I mostly run that shop where I earn a little bit of passive income. But I also like doing sometimes fairs. Like I've worked with Stabilo and Tombow, so they are like from the same distributor in Switzerland, and I've been like with them on different fairs and trade shows where I just did like demonstrations with brush lettering. And I'm gonna start teaching workshops next week actually. So
Oh,
yeah.
so
Next week is
you
my
never did a workshop so far?
no, I haven't done like a proper workshop where people paid me to come attend it. So I've done during studying we had this thing which was like art tutorials where we would like after school hours have like different people from our class that were doing something creative show us what they did. And I did that like 2 years in a row where I was just like doing little introduction into brush lettering. And also I showed some of point to pen, but it was like just more like playing, so brush lettering is definitely easier to explain so quickly. Sorry. So I did that, and I've also done like a lot of tutorials on like not well actually not that many. I've done a few tutorials on YouTube, and I've also been teaching like online classes on mostly on like digital stuff like how to create Procreate brushes. There's a Skillshare class on that on how I create my Procreate brushes, and I really want to do like more on Skillshare where I do a little bit more of lettering classes. But first, I want to teach like a proper workshop and see how people react and look if I can like do it in time. And once I feel like I have like a method down that works, I want to like translate it and do it digitally.
I just wanted to ask if you're like, if you're nervous, or if it's something weird or strange new to you, but then apparently it's not, because you said you've been teaching this and that and that, and
Yeah.
I guess
I've
you're.
also been like a tech tutor, so during like studying, I also like explained people, like helped people with their coding. So I guess I'm pretty good at explaining. I hope. I know I'm good at like explaining computers and stuff. I really want to teach a ProKid class at one point where I do iPad lettering stuff. So it will be interesting to see if I can like convey calligraphy. I'm not too sure. I'm a little bit afraid that I have planned too much content for the 3 hours that I have.
No, don't worry, but I'm pretty sure you will love it because all the people who are doing workshops and I've talked with them about it, like everybody like loves it. Like it's one of the best
Yeah.
things that they are doing. And actually, like I'm also like thinking to start do some workshops for beginners of for fracture here in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
But like I'm super like nervous and afraid because first of all I'm not sure if I'm that good of a teacher or person who can explain stuff. I'm in pretty much everything I'm self-taught and
Yeah.
I don't know. I somehow I believe in this that like if you want to learn something, you'll find a way. And then,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I see some people have interest, and I'm like, okay, everybody is telling me like giving workshops is super nice. They love it, like the interaction with people and everything, and they learn stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I'm a bit afraid, and I don't know
Yeah.
how to structure everything. Like, you know.
Yeah, that's also my problem because I've never personally been to like a proper workshop. So I'm like, how on earth do I like know how to teach? Especially because I personally never really go to workshops because I self teach myself as well. So I definitely know how you feel. But in the end, I feel like because you've been practicing and you have a way of how you personally approach things, I think you just have to like write that down and then I think we can do it.
Yeah,
I
but
hope.
like I've been on workshops, like I've been attending, but like for
Mm-hmm.
example, when we were in Milano in 2016 for the design of words, there were
Mm-hmm.
5 days, and every day a member of Calligraphy Masters was giving a workshop, like Tios one, Frak one,
Oh,
Pokras
cool.
Lampas, Toga,
Mm-hmm.
Girgin, and it was super awesome because I could see like what they do and how they do it, but at the same time I didn't participate because I was all the time with the camera filming,
Yeah.
checking stuff, taking pictures, and I'm on this super like
Mm-hmm.
awesome workshops which are teaching you amazing stuff, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not attending, and it's like come
Mm-hmm.
on, it's weird, but
Yeah.
I would say like I haven't attended properly a workshop like to
Mm-hmm.
go on a workshop and do it, but I recommend this for like 100, even 1000%.
Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking if you should do it or not, do it. Like
Yeah.
self-taught is great, but having someone who has more knowledge to teach you,
Yeah.
it's totally different thing. It can save you so
Mm-hmm.
much time, so much struggle,
Definitely.
and it's a great experience. Even though like on those
Yeah.
workshops I'm not attending them, really attending
Mm-hmm.
like writing, it's still
Yeah.
like the vibe and everything like
Mm-hmm.
it's super cool. It's just
Yeah.
so I would definitely recommend to people who haven't been to
Mm-hmm.
workshop or haven't even considered it, do it. If you
Mm-hmm.
have the opportunity, do it. If you don't,
Definitely.
find online classes. There are plenty. Like we are 21st century. Like internet has
Mm-hmm.
pretty much everything.
Yeah. But definitely. I'm going to attend a workshop, my first real workshop in May with Mike Meyer doing sign painting. He's actually
Oh,
coming to Zurich, which I'm super excited about, and it's going to be like a 2 day class. And that's something that I'm really excited about. And I'm really interested to see how that class will be different because it's like, since you have 2 days, it will probably be like a lot more in depth. So I'm really interested to see that. I'm
I
super
think
excited
I
for
think
it.
I did an episode with Ray Mwost. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Like you know who I'm talking about.
I think I know who you mean.
So he shared this story where he went to the town where Mike lives, and he told me about his workshop, and it was like some crazy experience. Like they were doing it for like a whole week, I think, and every day
Yeah.
like 6 or 8 hours, like intense
Yeah.
work, and he was so happy about it. Like this
Yeah.
this improved his skills and work with so much and so much, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's super awesome that you can attend his workshop.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Definitely.
I'm waiting him for a podcast. We were
Yeah.
supposed to be recorded it already, but then in the day of the recording, he had to do something else, and
Yeah.
like I'm so many people talking right now for
Yeah.
podcasts. Some people I forget it. We start discussing, but
Yeah.
yeah, I should not talk about these things. We are talking here about your journey. So
I'm also interested about the podcast journey, so
yeah, I was okay. I'm gonna ask you questions because this is like been in my mind for a few days, but I haven't discussed it with anyone. I was thinking maybe I should do like one episode of the podcast, like me, just me talking, and that's it. Like no guest, just me explaining stuff, like explaining stuff about calligraphy masters,
yeah,
about
telling
the
your
team.
story would be so interesting because I don't really know much about it. I mean, I know you started calligraphy masters like really early. I think 5 years ago or so.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
year,
5 years ago.
this year January became 5 years.
Yeah, I think I found like your account about 6 months or so
Okay.
into my personal Instagram. So I've been following your page like forever. But I mean, I feel like I know some about you, but I don't really know like your personal journey and how you came up with Calligraphy Masters and how you convinced like so many people to like join you when you were still like a pretty small page. So I think it would be so interesting.
It's funny because when the website was still on, there was like not the full story, but there was like the basic of the story. And then for a super long time, I've been willing to do a YouTube video, like a super nice video for the story and the team.
Yeah.
But because in my head, it's like it has to be so awesome and all these
Yeah.
like difficult steps that it's always in my mind, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna make it. And it's been like I don't know, maybe 2-3 years with the
Yeah.
idea. I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should just do a podcast and then start focusing really on the video because I really want to make it
Yeah.
because I have some great ideas.
Yeah.
But I asked you about the podcast because I don't know, like this is the podcast for the people, and I what I'm not sure if I should do it because it's like isn't this like too selfish? Like, yo, I ask
No,
all
I
the
don't
people,
think
and then
so.
I come here like, let me tell you my story. Like,
No, I
you
don't
should
think
not.
so because I think it's very interesting. It's really interesting to like hear stories from everyone, and it's especially interesting to like know who the host is as well. Like you're hosting people, and it's really interesting to like if I know your story better, I will probably like understand the way you answer things or questions you are asking. So, I think it would be interesting. Definitely, I would listen to it.
The last thing you said, like, okay, thanks a lot. Like, this convinced me. Super
Good,
awesome.
so do it.
Thanks for the advice. What's the best tip/advice you received on calligraphy or lettering that helped you the most?
Paul saying that 80% of calligraphy studying really helped me, basically, because that was really the point. And also, like, I think a couple of months ago, I, like, posted with Pointer Pen, and I comment and mentioned in the caption that I felt like I was really struggling with my script, especially because I hadn't done Pointer Pen a lot, but I had been doing a lot of iPad lettering. And I think he like wrote a comment saying that it's not that bad and you can definitely see improvement in like the shapes. And that's just something that got me thinking, like, even though Pointer Pen is like my main focus, I do a lot of iPad lettering when I'm like tired sitting just on the sofa, like in completely wrong posture and everything, but I do still write those shapes. And I look at those shapes all day long. So I feel like just looking at those shapes, I really get to analyze it. And even if I then try to do it with Pointer Pen and it's just like a lot more shaky because there's no streamline, I still have that like hand movement practiced. So and just as I said, looking at the stuff, like I look at alphabets all day long, and now I focus on like little things and like seeing transitions. And even though like I don't think my script is good at the moment where I look at it and I'm looking at it and it's just like I see all the flaws, like if I come back to it a couple days later and just look at it from afar, it looks really good. And I feel just like looking at your work very closely while you're practicing, but also when you're just like stumbling over it liking it is like one of the things that is pretty important, because you kind of just hate on your script all the time. That will be too frustrating. So I feel like allowing to like some stuffs but also being very critical of your work is really helpful.
You kind of just mentioned it, but I wanted to ask, which one are you doing more, or actually, how much time you give to like iPad lettering and then pen holder, like calligraphy, proper one
Yeah.
doing it? Like, which one do you do
Um,
more?
I probably do more iPad lettering because I also have like, and I bought like the newer iPad, like the third generation one recently. So I have that at home, and I brought like my old iPad to work. And we work like, we do also like, we program a PDF, and it has to like run through a generator, and it takes like sometimes 10 minutes to generate. And I just have like a pad of paper with me and an iPad, and whenever I just wait, I like draw letters and flourish. And then I also have like a pencil, so I do a lot of pencil calligraphy and iPad lettering at work, which is just like a little bit of practice. I recently brought like a brush pen, but I think if I brought a nib and ink, it would probably be too weird. But I do that at work a lot, so I do a lot of iPad lettering there. I do a lot of iPad lettering when I'm watching TV, so I'm just like sitting at my iPad. So I feel like I do a lot more like playtime on the iPad, but not really like real practice. I never do on the iPad because I feel like it's more of a toy than a tool to like improve your calligraphy. Which is also why if people want to learn iPad lettering, I always say at least buy a brush pen as well. Because you can never just learn it on the iPad. Even though I think Karim, like iPad lettering, I think she only did iPad lettering and none with pens until later on. But
For
I still
real?
believe that. Yeah, I think she really just did it on the iPad.
But this is something I've discussed with other people, and I think it's really wrong to like start with iPad. Like, of
I think
course,
so too.
because in the
Yeah.
beginning when iPad started popping, like iPad calligraphy, I was so much against it. But then at one
Yeah.
point I was like, okay, it's not bad, it's cool, it's just another tool, but do it when you have the base and you can do it with your
Yeah.
hand.
Definitely. Definitely. And also, I feel like a lot of people are criticizing the streamline feature, which is on the iPad, which smooths out your lines.
Yeah.
And I personally put it at 100%. And I've gotten some critiques about it. And I always say that you're doing digital work. And if you were to write that with a brush pen and scan it and vectorize it, I would make it smoother than it is originally. So I feel like it's like one step further, but it's definitely like it's a different version of your script. It definitely looks more polished.
I think even this is not a problem because this week I made an episode with Stefan Lopez. I don't know if you know him. He's like he does quite a lot of work with iPad, and he
Yeah.
shared something that it's 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 really inspiring what and how he does it. And I'm not gonna say it because you hear it, but I think you'll be surprised because even it's 100% if it makes something difference, then still it can be of use to you. That's all
Yeah.
I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And then for the rest, if people or you are interested, there will be the episode with Stefan Lopez.
Yeah. I'm
The,
definitely listening to it.
uh,
Yeah.
my question jumped out of my head again. I had a ready question. No, please come back. I hate when this happens.
Yeah, it happens
I,
sometimes.
I feel awkward.
It'll come back.
Come on, come. Oh yeah. Can you give me some names of calligraphers, calligraphy artists, or lettering artists, whatever, some that you are truly inspired by and that you are following? Like
Yeah.
a bunch of name of modern artists and then a bunch of traditional.
Yeah. So for modern, I really love Letters by Shells. She's a really good friend of mine by now. I'm hopefully going to meet her by the end of the year. So she's what I really like about her script is it's really bouncy and modern. Like if you think of modern brush lettering, it's brush lettering. I think you will think of her script. And I really just like her message. She's always so positive, and she's the kindest person ever. And I just love her feed. It's just full of colors, and it's so lighthearted and simple and beautiful. And because even though like I've learned traditional modern calligraphy first, I've never really managed to do like bouncy lettering, and I still think it's really cool, even though I think a lot of traditional calligraphers look down upon modern calligraphy a bit. I really enjoy it and I love it, and I really like her work. I also really like Crystal Elizabeth. She also is a modern calligrapher who, well, she's more of a brush lettering artist as well. And she has this really cool way of mixing capital letters and lowercase letters to make look like she makes these really cool modern compositions that I really like. And she also recently published a book, which is really nice. It has a nice introduction. Then these are like my main inspirations for like modern calligraphy. And then I also really like what Peggy Dean does, so the pigeon letters. She's a really great Skillshare teacher. She has some amazing classes on like pricing on Skillshare. And she has like, I think we started around the same time, and she has grown incredibly fast. And I just love her because she's always like spreading so much positivity and motivational. And she also recently came out with like her own cruelty-free brushes, and she's made really cool books that she self-published and then got to publish with like a real publisher. So I think her story is like really inspirational of what you can just achieve with just doing lettering, and her illustration and line work is just beautiful. So I really like her as well.
Maybe I should invite her to the podcast, or
Yeah, she would be awesome. I think she would be really nice. And then for traditional, I love Paul Antonio, David Grimes, Mike Ward, Jake Whiteman, and I really love Bad Calligraphy as well. He's the lefty. I'm just like blown away how you can do that with your left hand. Because my sister is left-handed, and whenever I watch her write, I'm just like struggling to understand how it works.
damn, like I just I first while we were talking, I remembered something, and then
Yeah.
I got surprised how many episodes I've done actually already, because
Yeah.
it always points to. But yeah, there is an episode with the Russian dude about the left hand, and this is
Yeah.
something I was like blown away. I was like, what? But yeah, I'm not. I'm just.
Yeah.
I mentioned those things just to tease
Yeah.
people, you know. I'm really sorry about it.
No problem.
Maybe did it sound weird?
It sounded really cool. Is it Bulgarian?
Yes, this is.
Really cool. I really like listening to like foreign languages that I don't understand, but it sounded really interesting. I didn't think I've ever heard it.
I felt awkward. I was like, in my mind, I'm talking. I'm like, man, what's she thinking? Like, what the fuck is this dude talking right now? But yeah, anyways, like we were speaking about.
Calligraphy inspiration. All right. So for lefties, I also really like Logos calligraphy. She's also really awesome, and I love Michael Sull's work as well, and Mike Meyer for sign painting, and there's this guy, I cannot pronounce his name, Bei-ing Uxer or something like that. I don't really know. I don't remember how it's written, but he does beautiful flourishing. He's from India, and he does like these flourished pieces where he has literally drawings of like animals and stuff, so that's pretty awesome. And other than that, I love also Telmo's work. He helped Paul with his manual. And Alice's work, who was Paul's assistant when I was there. I really like what she does. And then, who else do I follow and see all the time?
I think those are enough.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There
I think,
always are.
Yeah, there's always more. I really love also like Theo Swan. I love his work. He's awesome.
He's the reason for me to find calligraphy, to start
Yeah.
calligraphy masters.
Yeah.
He's the reason for everything.
Yeah, he does really nice. His work is amazing.
Okay, I have two questions for you, and
Yeah.
we are about to wrap. First is it's very quick and simple. How half a px is this half a pixel?
It's half a pixel, yes.
Okay, because it's been bugging my mind for so long. I
Yeah.
always want to ask and I always forget.
Yeah.
And then
It's half a pixel. And it's
okay.
a struggle to explain the name to people because mostly people who are never into technology will never get that PX stands for pixel, so I always have to explain it.
Yeah, fair enough. And
Yeah.
then my second question is, what is it that you love most about calligraphy? What what it does to you, or what is the thing that you love most about it?
I think it's just so different from everything else that I do. I'm really like, I spend my life in front of a keyboard most of the time, and I never was like creative or let's just say it. I never considered myself an artist. My sister draws really well, and I have other people in my family that are really good artistically at drawing and painting. And I was always just, I was the writer, and my sister was the artist. And I really liked that one. I felt very comfortable in my role of being the writer and the nerd. But it's just really cool to like have this thing that I can geek out about, but at the same time it's something that you can visually show people. Like it's really difficult to like show people, oh, I write stories, here's like the book that I wrote, or I write the code for that website, look at it, that's my code. It's really difficult, but I really like the fact that I can just like I can write a birthday card and people love it because it's so personal. So it's really like a practical thing to do, like a passion and a hobby that you can share with people as well. And I just really love watching people write calligraphy. It's so like meditating, and writing yourself right and watching yourself writing is also like this. It has this soothing feeling to it that's just so satisfying. So I guess that's like the biggest aspect of it. That's like, it's like my thing with words, and it's just like an artsy thing that I can do. So that's probably like the best thing about it.
Awesome. Then here is the final. I guess you're familiar with it. If just to the people who are listening, to the people who are thinking if they should start or what to do, or if you want to say something to anyone, if you want to promote something, whatever it is, just go on.
Okay, my biggest tip for people wanting to learn calligraphy is definitely do it, but do your research first, because if you do research right, you will spend a lot less time being frustrated with the tool that you use. Never go and try to write calligraphy with the speedball oblique holder, because that's terrible. And yeah, at the same time, be critical of your work, but never forget to have fun, because that's the most important part. And yeah, if you're interested in learning about tools and getting really geeky about ink and stuff, I do have a blog on halfapixel.com, and I write a lot of really long blog posts. There's like a blog post that's 5,000 words just about holders, and there's my post about black inks, where I explain the differences between Sumi, India, watercolor, Gunzai, gouache. I think it would be interesting if you really like to be nerdy about stuff. So if you want to check that out, do.
I'm so happy that you did this because I was just thinking every time, like in the end of the episode, I give these two opportunities to people, and they never plug, like, for example, follow my Instagram, follow, like,
Yeah.
if somebody asks me something like this, I'll be follow Facebook, follow Instagram,
Yeah.
subscribe on YouTube, go follow the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I'll use any opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm like, people, like, this is the end. Like, you
Yeah.
can promote whatever it is, your accounts, your upcoming
Yeah.
projects, products, like.
Yeah,
I
there's a
don't know.
link on my blog to all my social media as well. So, but I really feel like a lot of people don't know that I even have a blog, and I spend a lot of time doing the photography and the writing for it. So have a look at it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Miriam, thanks a lot for being guest in the Calligraphers podcast and
Yeah.
being the first female.
Thanks a lot for having me.
It's been a super pleasure. It was really
Yeah.
exciting listening to your story and talking about calligraphy.
Yeah.
And I hope in the future, if you have something to talk, or depends on how it goes with the podcast, that you be a guest
Yeah.
again.
I'd love to.
Awesome. Thanks for your time. And as always, keep writing.
Yeah.
So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of Calligraphy Master Show. I really hope you enjoyed listening to the story of Miriam and it helped or inspired you in any way. Next Sunday, I'll be speaking with the amazing Susan Cunningham, which is a member of Calligraphy Masters as well. So please follow Calligraphy Masters on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep writing.